The forest was quiet except for the occasional rustling of leaves and the soft patter of small feet against damp soil. 8-year-old Eli Parker moved through the woods behind his family's farm with practiced ease, his keen eyes scanning the ground for anything interesting. After yesterday's storm, there were bound to be treasures, fallen birds' nests, interesting stones uncovered by the rain, maybe even arrowheads if he was really lucky. What he found instead changed everything. In a clearing where an ancient oak had fallen during the storm, something gleamed in the hollow beneath its massive roots. Eli approached cautiously, his heart thumping with excitement. It was larger than a basketball but smaller than a beach ball, with a surface that shimmered iridescently in the dappled sunlight. The object was perfectly oval, its surface smooth and warm to the touch. "Whoa," Eli whispered, his voice hushed with awe. He ran his fingers over the egg, because that's what it had to be, and felt a slight vibration beneath his fingertips. Something was alive inside. Looking around to make sure no one was watching, Eli carefully lifted the egg. It was surprisingly light for its size, and the surface seemed to pulse with an inner light that shifted from deep purple to emerald green. He tucked it into his backpack, adjusting his jacket around it for protection. "Don't worry," he murmured to the egg. "I'll take care of you." Eli had no idea that 30,000 light-years away, an entire civilization had just registered an alert. The queen of the Draconis Empire paced the length of her private chambers, her massive scaled form moving with surprising grace despite her agitation. Her primary wings were folded tight against her back, but her secondary set twitched with anxiety. "What do you mean it's on Earth?" she demanded, her voice resonating with harmonic undertones that made the crystal fixtures in the room vibrate. "That planet is in a restricted sector." First Minister Tarak bowed his head, scales flattening in submission. "The royal transport carrying your majesty's clutch was attacked by rebels near the Sol system. The pilot managed to eject one of the egg pods before the ship was captured. Our tracking systems indicate it landed on Earth approximately 16 planetary rotations ago. And you're only telling me now?" The Queen's eyes narrowed to glowing slits. We needed to verify the signal, Your Majesty. The technology on Earth is primitive, but the planet is under the Galactic Concord's protection. We cannot simply retrieve the egg without proper protocols." The Queen exhaled, a wisp of blue energy escaping her nostrils. "That egg contains my heir, Minister. The future of our entire species. We need to get it back, with or without protocols." Back on Earth, Eli had successfully smuggled the egg into his bedroom, creating a nest for it using an old electric blanket set on low and several soft pillows inside his closet. His parents were distracted with repairs after the storm, giving him plenty of time to research. Eli sat cross-legged on his bedroom floor, scrolling through his tablet. "You're not a bird egg," he muttered, comparing images online to the gently pulsing object in his closet. "Too big for a turtle or a snake. What are you?" As if in response, the egg trembled slightly, and Eli gasped as a small crack appeared on its surface. "Oh no, are you hatching? I don't know if I'm ready." Panic rose in his chest, but curiosity quickly overtook it. He leaned closer, watching as the crack extended. A small section of the shell pushed outward, then fell away. Through the hole, Eli saw something impossible, a tiny eye with a vertical pupil, surrounded by iridescent scales that matched the egg's surface. The eye blinked once, then focused directly on him. "Hi there," Eli whispered, his voice barely audible. "I'm Eli." A chirping sound emerged from the egg, followed by more cracking. Within minutes, the creature had broken free entirely, revealing itself to be unlike anything Eli had ever seen or imagined. It was clearly reptilian, with scales that shifted colors like oil on water, but it had 6 limbs, 4 legs ending in delicate clawed feet, and 2 small wing-like appendages on its back. Its head was elegantly shaped with 2 small crests extending backward, and its tail ended in a soft, fan-like structure. Most striking were its eyes, large, intelligent, and a deep violet color that seemed to glow from within. The creature, about the size of a small cat, shook off the remaining bits of shell and chirped again, stretching its wings. "You're a dragon," Eli breathed, awestruck. "A real dragon." The creature tilted its head, then took an unsteady step toward him. Instinctively, Eli held out his hand. The dragon sniffed his fingers, then pressed its head against his palm. A warm sensation spread up Eli's arm, and in his mind, he felt rather than heard a simple impression: trust. Safe. Yeah, Eli said, tears of wonder filling his eyes. You're safe with me. I promise. What Eli couldn't know was that this simple touch had just established a telepathic bond, one that would soon alert the Draconis fleet to his exact location. Commander Vex of the Draconis Royal Guard studied the holographic display of Earth with growing frustration. This retrieval should be simple. We locate the egg, extract it with precision teleportation, and leave. These humans would never even know we were there. The science officer, Lyra, shook her head, her scales shimmering with concern. Commander, the situation has changed. Our scans indicate the egg has hatched, and the hatchling has already imprinted. Look at these neural patterns. The display shifted to show intertwining energy signatures, one clearly draconian, the other unmistakably human. Vex hissed in surprise. That's impossible. Our species doesn't bond with primitives. Apparently this one has, Lyra replied. And according to the ancient laws, a bonded royal hatchling cannot be separated from their chosen companion without severe consequences. The hatchling could die. The queen will not accept this, Vex muttered. Then perhaps, said a new voice, we should bring the human as well. Both officers turned to see High Diplomat Zarin entering the bridge, his ancient scales bearing the ceremonial markings of his office. That would violate at least 7 interstellar treaties, Vex protested. And leaving the heir to the Draconis throne on a primitive world would doom our entire civilization, Zarin countered. Sometimes, Commander, the old ways must adapt to new circumstances. For 3 days, Eli managed to keep his new friend, whom he'd named Nova, hidden from his parents. He snuck food from the kitchen, offering chicken, fish, and even some fruits, discovering that Nova particularly enjoyed berries and fish. The dragon grew at an astonishing rate, already doubling in size and developing more control over its color-shifting abilities. More remarkably, their mental connection strengthened. While Nova couldn't speak in words, Eli received clear emotional impressions and even some simple images. In turn, he found he could project his thoughts to Nova with increasing clarity. On the 4th night, Eli woke to Nova's urgent chirping. The dragon, now the size of a large dog, was perched on his windowsill, wings extended and head raised alertly. What's wrong? Eli mumbled, rubbing sleep from his eyes. An image flashed in his mind, lights in the sky, approaching fast. Eli rushed to the window and gasped. Above the tree line, a formation of lights hovered, too organized to be stars, too silent to be planes. As he watched, one of the lights detached from the group and began descending toward his family's property. They're coming for you, aren't they? Eli whispered, his chest tight with sudden understanding. Nova pressed against his side, projecting feelings of anxiety mixed with recognition. I won't let them take you, Eli promised, though fear made his voice shake. He grabbed his backpack, quickly stuffing it with a flashlight, some snacks, and a water bottle. We need to hide. Nova chirped in agreement, and together they crept downstairs and out the back door, careful not to wake Eli's parents. They ran toward the forest, the same woods where Eli had found the egg just days before. Behind them, a beam of pale blue light touched down in the field beyond the farmhouse. Eli and Nova reached the fallen oak tree, both breathing hard. The dragon's scales had darkened to match the night, only the violet eyes visible in the darkness. We need to keep going, Eli panted. Find somewhere to hide until... A voice spoke from the shadows. Until what, young human? Until you realize you possess something that does not belong to you. Eli spun around, his flashlight beam landing on a figure that made him gasp. Standing before them was what could only be described as a humanoid dragon, tall and elegant, with iridescent scales similar to Nova's, but in deeper hues of blue and purple. The being wore what appeared to be armor that conformed perfectly to its muscular frame, and its eyes glowed with the same violet light as Nova's. Nova chirped excitedly, taking a step forward before Eli could stop him. Stay back, Eli warned, placing himself between Nova and the stranger. Who are you? The dragon person inclined its head slightly. I am Zarin, High Diplomat of the Draconis Empire. And you, young human, have bonded with our royal heir. Eli's mind reeled. Royal heir. The hatchling you call Nova is child to our queen, destined to rule our civilization spanning hundreds of worlds across this galaxy. Zaren's voice was calm but firm. We have come to retrieve what is ours. Nova pressed against Eli's leg, projecting feelings of confusion and conflict. Images flashed in Eli's mind, vast starfields, enormous structures orbiting distant planets, and a massive dragon with jewel-encrusted scales sitting upon a crystalline throne. Nova's a prince? Eli whispered, his hand automatically moving to rest on the dragon's head. Princess, actually, Zaren corrected. And she must return with us. Her mother, our queen, awaits. The revelation stunned Eli. Not only was Nova royalty, but she was a she, not a he as Eli had assumed. Before he could process this, more figures emerged from the darkness, dragon people in similar armor, their weapons humming with energy Eli could feel rather than hear. You will surrender the hatchling, said a harsh voice as another, more heavily armored figure stepped forward. Commander Vex, Zaren said sharply. We agreed to handle this diplomatically. Diplomacy is taking too long, Vex growled. The queen grows impatient. Fear gripped Eli's heart, but something else rose alongside it, determination. He stood straighter, keeping his hand on Nova's head. She chose me, he said, his voice stronger than he expected. We have a connection. I can feel what she feels, and she doesn't want to go with you. The commander scoffed, but Zaren's expression shifted to one of interest. You claim to share a mental bond with the royal heir? It's not a claim, Eli insisted. It's real. Watch. He closed his eyes, concentrating on projecting a specific thought to Nova. In response, the young dragon spread her wings and performed a perfect circle around Eli, then stood on her hind legs and touched her forehead to his in a gesture that clearly surprised the watching Draconians. The ancestral greeting, Zaren murmured. She should not know that yet. I showed her, Eli said simply. In my mind. A murmur ran through the gathered aliens. Commander Vex stepped forward, his hand moving to the weapon at his side. This changes nothing. The hatchling returns with us, by order of the queen. Zaren held up a clawed hand. Commander, you know the ancient laws as well as I do. A bonded royal cannot be separated from their chosen without grave consequences. Then we take the human too, Vex replied coldly. Eli's eyes widened. Take me? To space? To another planet? It would seem, Zaren said carefully, that you have become part of a situation far larger than yourself, young Eli. The heir to our throne has chosen you as her companion, a phenomenon unprecedented in our history. This creates complications. Nova chirped, stretching her wings as she projected a clear sentiment to Eli. Together. But my family, Eli protested. My mom and dad. I can't just disappear. Zaren exchanged glances with the other Draconians. There are ways to handle this situation that respect your world's autonomy while fulfilling our needs. Your parents could be informed of a special opportunity for you. An exclusive educational program, perhaps. You want to lie to them, Eli translated, frowning. We want to avoid interstellar incident, Commander Vex corrected tersely. Your primitive world is not ready for knowledge of the wider galaxy. Eli felt Nova's growing distress at the tension. The young dragon was picking up on everyone's emotions, her scales rippling with unsettled patterns. He took a deep breath, trying to project calm. I need to talk to my parents, he said firmly. I won't just vanish. And they wouldn't believe some fake school anyway. The boy is right, came a new voice, softer and melodious. From behind the group emerged another Draconian, smaller than the others, with scales that shimmered in pastel colors. Humans formed strong family bonds. Separation would cause trauma to the child, which would affect the hatchling through their connection. Zaren nodded respectfully to the newcomer. Science Officer Lyra, what do you suggest? Lyra approached slowly, crouching to meet Eli's eyes. We could offer partial truth. Your parents would know you are participating in something special, something that will take you far from home, but bring you back change for the better. Many human parents throughout history have accepted such arrangements for their children's advancement. Nova suddenly perked up, projecting an image so clearly that Eli gasped. He saw his parents standing in a great hall, looking up in wonder at the stars visible through a vast transparent dome. Nova thinks my parents could come too, at least to see where I'd be going. The Draconians exchanged surprised looks. The hatchling suggests bringing the humans' progenitors to the homeworld. Commander Vex sounded scandalized. Actually, Zarin said thoughtfully, that might solve several problems at once. The Queen could meet the human family, evaluate the bond herself, and make a more informed decision. It would violate protocols, Vex began. It would demonstrate our respect for their species, Lyra countered. Something the Galactic Concord would view favorably. As the aliens debated, Eli felt Nova pressing closer to him, her wings partially wrapping around him protectively. In his mind, he sensed her growing anxiety, but also her absolute certainty that they should not be separated. I have a condition, Eli announced suddenly, surprising himself with his boldness. The Draconians fell silent, turning to look at him. If you want Nova to go with you, then I need to talk to my parents first. Face to face. No tricks, no mind control, none of that alien stuff. Just an honest conversation. Zarin studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Very well, young human. We will accompany you to speak with your parents. But know this, one way or another, the royal heir must return to our homeworld. The future of our entire species depends on it. As they began walking back toward the farmhouse, Eli felt a strange mixture of terror and excitement. His ordinary life had been completely upended in just a few days, and now he faced the possibility of leaving Earth itself. Nova trotted beside him, occasionally brushing against his leg in reassurance. Despite everything, Eli couldn't help but smile when he looked at her. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. They reached the edge of the woods, the farmhouse visible in the distance. Several more Draconians had emerged from what Eli now realized was a spacecraft, sleek and silvery, hovering silently above the north field. Its presence would be impossible to hide for long. Your world has myths about our kind, Zarin said quietly as they walked. Dragons, they call us. Monsters, in some tales. Wise guardians in others. Which are you really? Eli asked. Zarin's expression was unreadable. Like all species, young human, we are capable of being both. That is why rules and laws matter. They help us be our better selves. They reached the back porch, and Eli took a deep breath. Wait here, he told the Draconians. Let me talk to them first. Having dragon aliens appear in our kitchen might give my mom a heart attack. Inside, Eli found his parents in the living room, his father already half-dressed and looking concerned. Eli, his mother exclaimed, rushing to him. We heard noises outside. What are you doing up at this hour? And what was that light in the north field? Eli looked at his parents, his dad with his reading glasses still perched on his nose, his mom in her faded bathrobe, and realized how completely unprepared they were for what he was about to tell them. Mom, Dad, he began, his voice shaking slightly. I need to show you something, and I need you to promise not to freak out. His father's eyebrows shot up. Son, you know, whenever someone starts a conversation that way, freaking out becomes the most likely outcome. Despite everything, Eli found himself smiling. Yeah, I know, but this is really important. He moved to the back door and opened it, then whistled softly. Nova bounded into the house, her scales shifting to a friendly golden hue as she chirped excitedly. His mother screamed. His father stumbled backward, knocking over a lamp. What in God's name is that? His father gasped. This is Nova, Eli said quickly. She's a dragon. A real, alien dragon. And she's a princess. And there are more of her people outside, and they want to take her home. But she doesn't want to go without me. And I don't want to go without you knowing. And it's all really complicated, but I promise I'm not making this up. His mother had pressed herself against the wall, her face pale. Eli, is this some kind of joke? Some animatronic thing from the internet? In response, Nova spread her wings and gently lifted off the ground, hovering at eye level with Eli's mother. She tilted her head, her violet eyes blinking slowly, then extended one delicate front paw as if in greeting. Oh my God, his mother whispered. It's real. Eli corrected automatically. And yes, she's real. And there's more. Before he could continue, a soft knock came at the back door. Eli sighed, realizing the Draconians hadn't waited after all. The kitchen door swung open to reveal Zarin, who had assumed a more humanoid appearance, his scales less pronounced, his wings hidden, though his eyes still glowed with that unmistakable violet light. Mr. and Mrs. Parker, he said, his voice carefully modulated to sound more human. I apologize for this intrusion. My name is Zarin, High Diplomat of the Draconis Empire. I believe your son has begun to explain our unusual situation. Eli's father stepped forward, placing himself protectively in front of his family. I don't know what kind of game this is, but you need to leave our property right now before I call the authorities. Zaren's expression remained calm. I understand your concern, sir. In your position, I would react similarly. Perhaps it would help if I showed you why conventional authorities would be ineffective in this scenario. He gestured toward the window. Outside, the draconian ship had moved closer, now hovering directly above their yard, bathing the entire house in a soft blue light. That, Zaren said quietly, is a Class 3 diplomatic vessel of the Draconis fleet. It contains technology your world won't develop for at least another 3 centuries. We are not here to harm anyone, least of all your son. We are here because of an unprecedented situation involving our royal heir. Nova chirped, moving to Eli's side and pressing against his leg. The connection between them pulsed with warmth and reassurance. You're saying that thing is alien royalty? Eli's mother asked, her voice faint. Eli corrected again, more firmly this time. And yes, Mom, Nova is a princess. Her egg was sent to Earth by accident, and I found her. We have a special connection now. A neural bond. Came another voice as Lyra entered, making no attempt to disguise her draconian features. Something we believed impossible between our species. Yet it exists, and it is remarkably strong. Eli's parents stared in growing shock as more draconians appeared, Commander Vex and 2 royal guards, their armor gleaming in the kitchen's fluorescent light. This is insane, Eli's father muttered, running a hand through his hair. Completely insane. Dad, Eli said, moving to stand beside his father. I know this is crazy, but it's real. And they want me to go with them. Absolutely not, his mother exclaimed. The situation is complex, Zaren explained. The hatchling your son calls Nova is the heir to our throne. She must return to our homeworld for her proper development and education. However, she has formed a bond with your son that cannot be safely broken. We're not discussing this, Eli's father said firmly. He's our son. He's 8 years old. He's not going anywhere with aliens. Nova suddenly spread her wings, her scales flashing with emotion. She moved to the center of the kitchen and projected an image so powerful that everyone, human and draconian alike, could see it hovering in the air like a hologram. Eli standing beside Nova, both of them slightly older, in what appeared to be a vast chamber filled with stars. She's trying to show us something, Eli said, his voice hushed with wonder. She can see possibilities, futures. Commander Vex stepped forward. This delays nothing. The Queen awaits her heir. We must depart immediately. We will not be rushed, Zaren countered sharply. These humans deserve time to process what is happening. Eli's mother interjected, her initial shock giving way to a mother's protective instinct. I don't care what royal alien emergency you're having. My son is not leaving this planet. Nova chirped distressfully, her scales darkening. Through their bond, Eli felt her anxiety and confusion. She understood the human's reluctance, but also felt the pull of her heritage and responsibilities. Wait, Eli said suddenly. What if my parents came too? Just to see? To meet the Queen and understand what's happening? He looked at the Draconians hopefully. Nova showed me that might be possible. Lyra nodded thoughtfully. The hatchling's suggestion has merit. A diplomatic visit could resolve many concerns. Absolutely not, Commander Vex growled. The security risks alone would be minimal, Zaren interrupted. And the goodwill generated could be valuable. The Galactic Concord has long encouraged cultural exchanges with developing worlds. Eli turned to his parents, his eyes pleading. Mom, Dad, please. I know this is crazy, but it's real. And Nova needs me. She's scared and confused, and I promised I'd take care of her. His father shook his head in disbelief. Son, you're asking us to get on an alien spaceship and fly to another planet. Do you have any idea how that sounds? I do, Eli admitted. But look around. This is happening whether it sounds crazy or not. His mother had been watching Nova, who had moved closer to her, scales shifting to gentle, non-threatening colors. She really seems to care about you, she said softly. She does, Eli confirmed. And I care about her too. After a long moment of tense silence, Eli's father sighed deeply. If, and this is a massive if, we were to consider this insanity, what exactly would happen? How long would we be gone? Would it be safe? Would anyone notice our absence? Zarin stepped forward. We can ensure your return within what would appear to be a normal vacation period, approximately 2 weeks in your time. As for safety, you would be under diplomatic protection at all times. The Draconis Empire has hosted visitors from thousands of worlds, and nobody would believe us if we told them anyway, Eli's mother added with a weak laugh. Nova chirped again, this time projecting an image of all 3 Parkers standing together, safe and amazed, looking out at an alien landscape. Eli's parents exchanged a long look, having one of those silent conversations that only people who have been married for years can have. We would need to make arrangements, his father finally said. For the farm, for our work. People would ask questions. That can be managed, Zarin assured him. Our technology can create the appropriate cover story and documentation. And we all stay together, Eli's mother added firmly. All 3 of us, at all times. Of course, Zarin agreed. Commander Vex looked ready to object, but was silenced by a stern glance from Lyra. Then, Eli's father took a deep breath. I guess we're going to space. God help us. The preparations happened with astonishing speed. Within hours, the Parkers had packed small bags with personal items, while Draconian technology handled the rest, creating a digital trail of emails about a last-minute educational opportunity, arranging for a neighbor to check on the farm, and establishing a convincing cover story that would hold up to casual scrutiny. By dawn, they stood beside the Draconian ship, which had landed properly in the North Field. Eli held Nova close, both of them trembling with excitement and nervousness. Remember, Zarin instructed as they prepared to board, you will be the first humans to officially visit the Draconis homeworld. Your behavior will shape how our people view your entire species. No pressure, Eli's father muttered. The interior of the ship was nothing like Eli had imagined from science fiction movies. Instead of cold metal and blinking lights, the spaces were organic and flowing, with surfaces that seemed to shift between solid and translucent. The lighting adjusted automatically to human comfort levels, and the air carried a faint scent like cinnamon and ozone. As they settled into what Lyra called the diplomatic quarters, Eli felt Nova's excitement building. Through their connection, he sensed her joy at returning to familiar surroundings mixed with anxiety about what would happen when they reached their destination. It'll be okay, he whispered to her, stroking her wings gently. We'll face it together. The journey took 3 days by the humans' perception, though Zarin explained that they were actually traveling much faster than time itself through something called fold space. During this time, Eli's parents gradually adjusted to their new reality, asking endless questions about the Draconis civilization, their technology, and their relationship with other species. Lyra, who had been assigned as their primary guide, answered patiently. Our empire spans 47 star systems, though we maintain peaceful relations with hundreds more. We are one of the founding members of the Galactic Concord, which established the protected status of developing worlds like Earth. Protected from what? Eli's mother asked. Exploitation, colonization, cultural contamination, Lyra explained. Your world has potential, but needs time to mature naturally. And yet here we are, Eli's father pointed out, being culturally contaminated quite thoroughly. Lyra's scales rippled in what Eli had learned was the draconian equivalent of a smile. Exceptions are sometimes necessary. Your son's bond with the royal heir is unprecedented, something our scientists are still struggling to understand. Nova, who had been growing noticeably during their journey, now stood as tall as a large dog, her wings almost fully developed. She spent hours with Eli, showing him mental images of her home, preparing him for what was to come. On the 4th day, Zarin appeared at their quarters. We are approaching the homeworld. The Queen has been informed of your arrival and awaits you in the Great Hall. I must warn you, Her Majesty can be intimidating to those enthused to her presence. More intimidating than being abducted by aliens. Eli's father asked dryly. Considerably, Zarin replied, missing the sarcasm entirely. They were led to an observation deck as the ship decelerated. Through a massive viewing portal, they watched as a planet came into view, a swirling sphere of deep blues and purples, with continents that seemed to glow from within. Massive structures orbited the planet, some so large they were visible even from this distance. Draconis Prime, Zarin announced with evident pride. heart of our civilization for over 12,000 years. Eli pressed his hands against the viewport, his eyes wide with wonder. It's beautiful, he whispered. Beside him, Nova chirped in agreement, her scales glittering with excitement. The landing was so smooth that Eli barely felt it. When the doors opened, they were greeted by what could only be described as a welcoming committee. Dozens of Draconians in ornate attire, many bearing insignia that marked them as officials of various ranks. "The royal heir returns," announced a herald, and the assembled crowd bowed deeply as Nova stepped forward, her scales shimmering regally. For the first time, Eli felt a new emotion through their bond, pride, but also a sense of belonging and heritage that he couldn't fully comprehend. Nova was connecting with her birthright, remembering things she couldn't possibly have been taught. They were escorted through vast corridors of what Zarin called the Royal Citadel, a structure that seemed to be part building, part living organism, with walls that occasionally shifted and ceilings that opened to reveal the sky above. Eli's parents stayed close, their expressions a mixture of terror and awe. Finally, they reached a massive set of doors that appeared to be made of living crystal. As they approached, the doors parted silently, revealing the great hall beyond. The chamber was enormous, easily the size of a football stadium, with a domed ceiling that showed the actual stars above, somehow magnified so that they seemed close enough to touch. Columns of what looked like frozen fire supported sweeping arches, and pools of luminescent liquid dotted the floor, providing light from below. And at the far end, upon a raised dais, sat the queen. Even from a distance, her size was staggering, easily 3 times larger than the largest Draconian they had met, with scales that shifted between midnight blue and deep violet. Multiple sets of wings were folded against her back, and a crest of crystalline structures adorned her head like a crown. As they approached, walking the seemingly endless distance across the hall, Eli felt Nova's emotions intensify: recognition, respect, and a complex mix of feelings he couldn't name. When they finally stood before the dais, Zarin bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, I present the human child Eli Parker and his progenitors, along with your heir, whom the humans have named Nova." The queen's eyes, enormous and glowing with inner light, fixed upon them. When she spoke, her voice resonated not just in their ears, but somehow inside their very minds. "So," she said, "this is the human child who bonded with my daughter." Eli swallowed hard, suddenly very aware of how small and insignificant he was in this vast chamber, before this ancient being. "Yes, Your Majesty," he managed to say, his voice barely a whisper. The queen leaned forward, her massive head drawing closer. "Do you understand what you have done, human child? Do you comprehend the consequences of the bond you share?" Before Eli could answer, Nova stepped forward, positioning herself protectively between Eli and her mother. She spread her wings and projected a series of images so clearly that everyone in the hall could see them. The moment Eli found her egg, the care he had shown her, their growing connection, and finally, their flight into the forest to escape capture. The queen watched these images in silence, her expression unreadable. Then, to everyone's surprise, she laughed, a sound like distant thunder that echoed throughout the hall. "My daughter has your courage, it seems," she said, her eyes now focused on Eli with new interest. "Few would stand before me as you do now, human child. Fewer still would have defied my royal guard to protect one of our kind." Commander Vex, who stood at attention nearby, shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't know she was a princess," Eli said honestly. "I just knew she needed me." "And now," the queen asked, "now that you know who she is, what she represents to our people?" Eli looked at Nova, then back at the queen. "She's still my friend. And we're connected. I can feel what she feels, and she can feel what I feel. That hasn't changed." The queen was silent for a long moment, studying him. Then she turned her gaze to Eli's parents. "And you? The progenitors of this remarkable child? What say you about this unprecedented situation?" Eli's father stepped forward, his voice steadier than Eli expected. "Your Majesty, we're just simple people from a small farm on a planet that, until a few days ago, had no idea beings like you existed. We're trying to understand a situation that seems impossible, but we know our son, and we trust his heart. If he says he has a connection with your daughter, then we believe him. And we want what's best for him," Eli's mother added. "Just as I imagine you want what's best for your daughter." Something shifted in the queen's expression, a softening, perhaps, or a new respect. Indeed, she said, the welfare of our children transcends species, it seems. She rose from her throne, her full size now apparent as she towered above them. There is much to discuss, much to consider. The bond between my daughter and your son presents both challenges and opportunities that have no precedent in our history. Zarin stepped forward. Your Majesty, if I may suggest, the ancient laws speak of such bonds, though they have never occurred between our kind and humans before. According to tradition, such connections are considered sacred and inviolable. I am well aware of the ancient laws, diplomat, the queen replied. I am also aware of my daughter's responsibilities to our empire. She cannot simply abandon her heritage to live on a primitive world, no matter how strong this bond may be. Nova chirped insistently, projecting another image, this one showing her and Eli together, but older, with Eli wearing draconian attire while Nova wore what appeared to be ceremonial regalia. Behind them stood both humans and draconians, working together. The queen studied this vision, her eyes narrowing. You suggest a more permanent arrangement? A true cultural exchange. She turned to look at Eli's parents. Your son would need education in our ways, our history, our science. He would need to understand what it means to be bonded to a royal heir. And what exactly would that mean? Eli's father asked cautiously. It would mean, the queen said, that your son's destiny is now intertwined with our empire's future. The bond they share would make him, in effect, a royal consort, an advisor and companion to the future queen. Eli's mother gasped. But he's just a child, as is my daughter, the queen acknowledged. Their relationship would evolve naturally over time, guided by both our traditions. But make no mistake, this is not a small thing. Your son would eventually need to divide his time between your world and ours. He would become a bridge between our civilizations. Eli listened to all this with growing amazement. Just days ago, his biggest concern had been finding interesting rocks in the forest. Now, he was being discussed as some kind of interstellar diplomat. Don't I get a say in this? He asked suddenly, surprising everyone, including himself. The great hall fell silent. Even the queen seemed taken aback by his directness. You are young, she finally said. Too young to fully understand. I understand that Nova needs me. Eli interrupted, then added quickly, Your Majesty. I understand that we have a connection that nobody expected. And I understand that sometimes the most important things happen when you're not looking for them. He stepped forward, standing directly beside Nova, who raised her head proudly. I don't know anything about being a royal, whatever you called it, but I know about being a friend. And I know Nova is special, not just because she's a princess, but because of who she is. Through their bond, he felt Nova's surge of affection and pride. She projected an image that only he could see, the two of them flying together through draconian skies, years from now, when both were fully grown. The queen watched this exchange, observing the subtle shifts in her daughter's scales that indicated deep emotional connection. Finally, she nodded slowly. Perhaps, she said, there is wisdom in youth that we who have lived centuries sometimes forget. She turned to address the entire assembly. This situation requires careful consideration. For now, the human family will be honored guests of the royal house. They will be shown our world, our ways, while we determine the best path forward. Zarin bowed deeply. A wise decision, Your Majesty. The days that followed were a whirlwind of discovery for the Parker family. They were given comfortable quarters in the royal citadel and treated with unexpected respect by the draconian court. Eli and Nova were inseparable, their bond growing stronger as Nova continued to grow physically, a process that Lyra explained was accelerated by the reconnection with her native environment. Eli's parents gradually adjusted to their new reality, asking endless questions about draconian society, technology, and history. To their surprise, many draconians were equally curious about Earth, having studied human transmissions for decades, but never having met actual humans before. On their 5th day on Draconis Prime, Eli and Nova were summoned to the Queen's private gardens, a vast enclosed space where plants from across the galaxy grew in carefully maintained environments. The Queen, appearing smaller in this intimate setting though still imposing, greeted them without ceremony. Walk with me, she instructed. As they moved through the exotic foliage, Nova trotting alongside Eli with occasional happy chirps. The Queen spoke more informally than she had in the Great Hall. "My scientists have studied your bond extensively," she said. "It is unprecedented, yet undeniable. The neural pathways that connect you operate on principles we do not fully understand." "Is that a problem?" Eli asked. "It is a mystery," the Queen corrected. "And mysteries can be either threats or opportunities, depending on how one approaches them." She paused beside a pool where luminescent creatures darted beneath the surface. "My daughter shows remarkable development for her age. Her mental abilities, in particular, have advanced beyond normal parameters. They believe your influence is partially responsible." Eli watched Nova preening her wings proudly. "I don't think I did anything special. I just accepted her as she was." "Perhaps that was exactly what was needed," the Queen mused. "Our society is structured, hierarchical. Royal hatchlings are typically raised with rigid protocols. You offered something different. Unconditional acceptance without expectation or judgment." She turned to face him directly. "The Galactic Concord has long debated when and how Earth should be introduced to the wider galactic community. Most believed your species required at least another century of development. Yet here you stand, a single human child who has managed what our diplomats thought impossible, forming a genuine bond with one of us." Nova chirped and projected an image that both Eli and the Queen could see, a vision of Earth, but with subtle draconian structures orbiting it, suggesting a future partnership. "She has her father's vision," the Queen said softly, a note of something like sorrow in her voice. "He always saw possibilities where others saw only obstacles." "What happened to him?" Eli asked carefully. "He died defending our principles," the Queen replied. "The rebels who attacked the transport carrying Nova's egg, they oppose our participation in the Galactic Concord. They believe we should conquer rather than cooperate." Nova pressed against Eli's side, sharing his sadness at this revelation. "I have made a decision," the Queen announced after a moment of silence. "One that will likely cause considerable controversy, but which I believe serves both our interests." She lowered her massive head until her eyes were level with Eli's. "Earth will be offered accelerated protected status within the Concord, with limited cultural exchange to begin immediately. Your family will serve as the first official human ambassadors to Draconian space, with appropriate education and support." Eli's eyes widened. "Ambassadors? Us? Who better?" the Queen asked. "You have already demonstrated remarkable adaptability, and your bond with my daughter provides a foundation of trust that would otherwise take decades to build." Nova chirped excitedly, her wings fluttering. "But my parents, our farm, our life on Earth." Eli stammered. "Would continue," the Queen assured him. "With modifications. You would divide your time between worlds. Nova would accompany you during your Earth periods, in a form suitable for your environment. During your time here, you would learn our ways, our sciences, preparing for a future where both our worlds benefit from open exchange." The implications were staggering. Eli looked at Nova, who projected feelings of excitement and hope. "This is really what you want?" he asked her. In response, Nova showed him a series of images, the two of them growing up together, learning from each other's worlds, eventually standing side by side as adults, facilitating understanding between their species. "I think," Eli said slowly, "my parents are going to need some time to process this." The Queen's scales rippled in what he now recognized as amusement. "Of course, but I suspect they have already begun to see the possibilities. Your mother, in particular, has asked most insightful questions about our educational systems." Later that evening, in their quarters, Eli's parents listened as he relayed the Queen's proposal. To his surprise, they didn't immediately reject the idea. "It's incredible, terrifying, and completely insane," his father admitted. "But then again, so is everything that's happened since you found that egg." His mother looked thoughtful. "The educational opportunities alone are, well, beyond anything we could have imagined for you." She smiled weakly. "Though I doubt any college admission board will accept educated on an alien planet on your applications." "So you're considering it?" Eli asked, hardly daring to hope. His parents exchanged one of their silent looks. "We're not saying yes," his father clarified. "We're saying we'll discuss it further, with the proper assurances about safety, education, and regular communication." Nova, who had been listening intently, suddenly projected an image that made all three Parkers gasp, a vision of their farmhouse, but with subtle modifications that incorporated draconian technology and a small structure behind it that resembled a landing pad. I think, Eli said with a growing smile, Nova is offering home improvement as part of the deal. 2 days later, they stood once again in the Great Hall, this time joined by representatives from the Galactic Concord, beings of various species that Eli found both terrifying and fascinating. The Queen had arranged a formal ceremony to establish what was being called the Earth Draconis Cultural Exchange Initiative. As various officials spoke about historic opportunities and new chapters in interspecies relations, Eli stood beside Nova, who had continued to grow and now reached his shoulder. Through their bond, they shared their excitement and nervousness about what was to come. When it was Eli's turn to speak, he stepped forward, feeling the weight of countless alien eyes upon him. He had practiced what he wanted to say, working with Zarin to find the right words. "I'm just a kid from Earth," he began honestly. "A few weeks ago, I was looking for interesting rocks in the forest behind my house. Then I found an egg that changed everything." He glanced at Nova, who chirped encouragingly. "I didn't know Nova was a princess. I didn't know she came from another planet or that her mom was a queen. I just knew she needed help. And that seemed like the most important thing at the time." The assembled dignitaries watched him with varying expressions of interest and skepticism. "Now I know a lot more. I know that the universe is bigger and more amazing than I ever imagined. I know that different species can understand each other if they try. And I know that sometimes the most important connections happen by accident." He reached out to rest his hand on Nova's head, feeling the warm pulse of their bond. "Humans have stories about dragons. Some of them are scary, about fire and destruction. Others are about wisdom and friendship. I think maybe both kinds of stories exist because we somehow knew, deep down, that someday we'd meet the real thing. And we understood that what happens next depends on the choices we make. Choices about fear or friendship, conflict or cooperation." Nova's scales rippled with pride as she projected a final image for all to see. Humans and Draconians working together, building something greater than either could achieve alone. "I choose friendship," Eli concluded simply. "I think most humans would, if given the chance." The Queen rose from her throne, her massive form somehow less intimidating than it had been days before. "Well spoken, young ambassador," she said, her voice carrying throughout the hall. "Perhaps there is hope for both our species yet." As the ceremony concluded and the assembled dignitaries dispersed, Eli found himself standing with Nova at one of the great viewing windows, looking out at the alien landscape of Draconis Prime, a world that would now be part of his life. "We're going to change everything, aren't we?" he whispered to Nova. Through their bond, he felt her confidence and determination. "Yes," she seemed to say, "but together." Behind them, Eli's parents were deep in conversation with Zarin and Lyra, already discussing the practical details of their new reality: educational curricula, travel schedules, communication systems. Nova nudged Eli gently, directing his attention upward. Through the transparent ceiling, Earth's sun was visible, a distant point of light among countless stars. Home, but now just one home among many possibilities. As he stood there, a human boy with his hand resting on a dragon princess's head, Eli Parker smiled at the wonderful absurdity of it all. His ordinary life had become extraordinary in ways no one could have predicted, all because he'd stopped to investigate something unusual in the forest. Sometimes, he reflected, the most amazing journeys begin with the smallest discoveries. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.